Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants event. My name is Joe Grabowski, and I'll be your host for today. As we work our way through February, it is a special month here. Every February since we launched in 2015, we have kicked all the men out, and we host women all around the world in science, exploration, adventure, and conservation. So if you haven't checked out the lineup for this month, take a little bit of time to visit exploringbytheseat.com and jump into the lesson section, and you will see an incredible selection of engineers and scientists and explorers, marine biologists, and the list goes on and on and on. So do take some time and check out the events we have coming up throughout this month. We have an amazing speaker joining us, a huge friend of Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants, Nicole Stott. She has explored from the heights of outer space to the depths of our oceans. A veteran NASA astronaut, her experience includes 2 space flights and 104 days living and working in space on both the Space Shuttle and the International Space Station. As an artist and the founder of Space for Art Foundation, Nicole combines her artwork and spaceflight experience to inspire creative thinking about solutions to our planetary challenges, to raise awareness about the interplay between science and art, and to promote the amazing work being done every day in space to improve our life right here on Earth. So I'm going to bring Nicole in live with us right now. Good morning, Nicole. How are you doing today?
Good morning. Awesome, Joe. Great to be here with all of you, as always.
All right. Well, it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the other side of the camera. We've got classrooms joining us from across Canada and the US, classrooms in camera spots, classrooms on YouTube. So if you are on YouTube, use those chats and let us know where you're tuning in from. And of course, get your questions ready. Nicole, I'm going to let you take over for a little bit because we've got Kahoot action coming up. We've got Q&A. So the floor is yours.
All right. Okay. And I know you've got my screen there somewhere. Really great to be here. As Joe said, I don't know. I love being a friend of Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants because I think it just is so perfect to describe what we should be doing every day, wherever we are, to be inspired and to be exploring. And Joe, if we could bring up the screen. Or let's see, do I just click on the other thingy?
Yeah, click on the PowerPoint at the bottom and yep.
All right, gotcha. You only have to tell me 47 times.
That's okay. Got
it. All right, so we're gonna go kind of fast through these today because the best part for me in this is always the question and answer and the Kahoot quiz to see what's going on. But as I was saying, I think there's kind of key concepts in our life like inspiration and exploration and all those Asians, I guess, that really motivate the opportunities we have, the way we can be just, behaving like crewmates and not passengers here on Spaceship Earth. And, things like flying in space and art have absolutely come together in that way for me. And I think underlying all of that is the power of awe and wonder. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about this awesome place, the International Space Station, which, as Joe mentioned, is where I spent most of my time while I was in space. And it is just a masterpiece. I hope all of you know about it. I hope you know about the app or the place on the web that you can go look. It's called Spot the Station. And you can put your city or zip code in, and it'll tell you when the space station is flying overhead. And it's just the most beautiful thing to see. And to think about this spaceship that is the size, if you laid it on the ground, bigger than a football field, and it just looks like this beautiful glowing dot of light moving through the sky. And you can imagine the 6 or 7 people on it that are from all over the world, representing 15 different countries and working peacefully and successfully there, certainly inspired and exploring and surrounded by awe and wonder, as you can imagine. And it is absolutely the best place that you can think of for living off the grid and all the science that's going on there. And the fact that, think about it. We build this ginormous mechanical spaceship to mimic as best we can what Earth does for us naturally, right? And everything we're doing there is absolutely off the Earth, for the Earth, to improve life here. We're together for the planet while we're living on this mechanical life support system. And while we're there, we know that every morning we have to get up and think about, oh my gosh, how much CO2 is in my atmosphere. How much drinking water do I have? How is the integrity of this thin metal hull surrounding me? And is the health and well-being of all my crewmates that I'm on board that spaceship with? And we have to do that every day because we don't get to do any science or anything else unless we know we can survive in that place. And so I would argue, and I'd like you guys to think about how the way we live like crewmates on board this mechanical life support system is absolutely the same way we should be living like crewmates down here on Spaceship Earth. Now, like I said, we go to this place in space, and we build it the way we do because we want the warm, fleshy ones, like you see in this picture, to be able to survive there, to be able to do the really important work that's going on. And we do that, like I said, by living like crewmates. And you can see, we're in space, so there's no up or down. You can float and fly in any direction you want. And I show this picture because as you're in school and you're working together with other people, and as you're thinking about what, you might want to do later in life and the kinds of things you enjoy just in general, the best kind of people to be doing that with are the ones that you're going to have a really good time with, that have a personality, right? But they're also the ones that when things don't go as planned, that they are the professionals, the people that will have your back. And I felt that way about every single person in this picture. And I think they trusted that I would have their back as well. And I think you can see that we had a little fun while we were in space too. Now, why do we even go and live and work on a space station? Well, we do that because in one major way, we can take gravity out of the equation. We're in this environment where everything floats. You float, all the stuff around you floats. As you can see here, water floats, behaves differently. And so we can look at things from a science standpoint that we thought we might have already understood a lot about and discover all kinds of new things about them. And that helps us, yes, figure out how to explore further off our planet, but it absolutely and most importantly brings all of those lessons from taking gravity out of the equation back to Earth to improve life on Earth as well. Now, shifting gears a little bit, there absolutely is all the science and work that's going on up there that we do as astronauts. But one of the most amazing things that you get to do when you're in space is explore by taking advantage of this really stunning view of our home planet through the windows of our spaceship. And I can tell you, we are observing Earth all the time from that place, both in a scientific way, yes, but in an absolutely kind of heart and mind way as well, just being absorbed in this beauty that is below us and appreciating it, I think, in a whole new, awesome and wonderful way. Now, when I remember when I got to space the first time, and I would say the second time too, you get there and you want, just like any place you go, like when you walk into your classroom or you walk into a place you might not have been before, I think we all as humans tend to look for what's familiar to us. And for me, Florida was what I wanted to see. Florida was this place I consider to be home. I wanted to see Florida from space, to experience it again, like in this whole new way of being able to float in front of the window and see it, in all its glory out there, glowing and kind of looking back at me from Earth. It was amazing. Anytime I knew we were flying over Florida, I wanted to see Florida from space. But it was kind of cool how the way I looked through the window evolved over time as well. I mean, I went from, of course, wanting to see the familiar like Florida to getting to know Earth better just from the geography of the planet, like knowing just from looking at the patterns and colors that, that I would have been flying over Australia instead of Africa just by looking at Earth and getting to know it that way. Seeing my crewmates out the window, seeing the space station out the window. But ultimately, it just became about what was that new surprise going to be, because there was one every time I looked out the window. And I found myself more and more pulling out the big zoom lens and really zooming in to these little things that would stand out to me. And one of those places was this little heart-shaped island in the Red Sea called Dahul. And I mean, I remember looking at this and thinking, oh my gosh, you know, God must have a wonderful sense of humor, because these kinds of places are scattered all over our planet. And I think as human beings, being curious the way we are, we want to discover them. We want to see them. We want to get to know them better. We even want to know what's going on down there. What am I seeing from space that might be different to what's going on right down there on Earth? But absolutely stunning. And this is a picture of a little chain of islands. Again, big zoom lens on the camera to see it this way. This is a little chain of islands called Las Rocas on the northern coast of Venezuela. And I remember looking at this and thinking, oh my gosh, it looks like somebody has reached down with a big paintbrush and painted a wave on the ocean. And this one picture became huge inspiration for me while I was in space, but also since coming back to Earth. And in space, it inspired me. It was the picture, the view I saw through the window that I wanted to paint while I was there. And I had brought up a little watercolor kit with me. So this is what I painted. I would paint a little bit every night before going to bed. And I just love it. It's like this, just like a personal highlight for my time in space. And I like to think about it in that no matter where we as humans go, we want to take our humanity with us. We want to bring a little bit of who we are to that place. And painting was that thing for me. And art has been going on in space since the very beginning of human spaceflight. Music has been going on in space, poetry, quilting, all of these things that we do to create as humans down here on Earth, we're doing in space. And I would argue probably wherever we are exploring here on Earth as well. Now, that one painting in space became inspiration for the work I'm doing now. And when I'm back on screen, you'll see this beautiful art spacesuit behind me. In this picture, you can see one that's actually got to fly to the space station. It's up there in that cupola window that we are always looking out of. And this all evolved into the formation of the Space for Art Foundation that Joe very kindly mentioned. And I'll just briefly say the Space for Art Foundation is a place, an organization where we believe we are uniting a planetary community of children through the awe and wonder of space exploration and the healing power of art. And we worked with kids all over the world. And thanks to Joe, we connected with kids in some places we might not have ever had the opportunity to connect with. And each of these kids' little individual paintings gets put into one of these suits. The folks at ILC Dover that made my suit that I did a spacewalk in space have volunteered with us since the very beginning to quilt them together into this beautiful art spacesuits. And we've had the chance to interact with the kids and the astronauts while the suit's in space, and they get to see their artwork coming together to life, to flying through the space station. And it's just amazing. And I will say it again, so thankful to Joe and my other friends here on Earth that help make beautiful work like this happen. Now, let's skip to the next one. All right, so this whole idea of coming back to Earth, we go to space. This is a picture of a place called the Maldives from space. Incredible. Like Florida, you find these little places on Earth that once you see them from space, you know them when you see them again. You can't deny them, the shape of them, the beauty, the color of them. And they actually absolutely lure you into wanting to explore them from here on Earth. And so I have been very fortunate to have the opportunity to come back to Earth and to experience some of these places from down here on Earth as well. And I say this because we have the opportunity every day right here with our feet planted on the planet to remember that we live on a planet, that every day, every night while we're standing out in our grass or you're standing up in your classroom, we are on a planet that's spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, that is rotating around, orbiting the sun at, and I can never remember the number, 37,000, 67,000 miles an hour. And yet we just feel like this is our place, like this is where we're meant to be. And we are. I mean, think about it, this planet that's our home. And so I encourage you, wherever you are, to get your feet in the dirt, in the sand, in the grass, and just think about the fact that you live on a planet. Look up and consider the awe and wonder that surrounds you. Antarctica was another place that just really was so kind of mysteriously otherworldly attractive to me from the space station. And I can tell you, this picture took probably the biggest zoom lens we have on board to capture from the space station. Whenever you would look south from the orbit that we had, it just looked like this mass of white, kind of like clouds. This is probably the best picture I've ever seen of Antarctica from the space station. And again, to be able to be down in it, to be like immersed in it in a way that makes it even more awesome and wonderful. And to be able, like in space, like no matter where we go on Earth or in space, as humans or as robots even, we want to bring a bit of ourselves with us. And I was fortunate to do that same thing in Antarctica that I had the chance to do in space, which was to bring that little watercolor kit and paint. And then the idea of coming back to Earth again. This picture in the top left was the first time I came back from space to be reunited with my family, you know, back here on our planetary home, to appreciate the awe and wonder of the other creatures we share this planet with. And I show you my two dogs here in our backyard. To every day, really and truly look around. You will be in awe. You will discover the wonder, and it hopefully, I believe, will positively impact the way you consider who and where you are in space. And we are all in space. This is another picture of Florida. I cannot look at this picture of Florida and not think of Florida as a special place for sure, but Florida as part of a planet that's my home. And I would just ask you all, if you leave with nothing else today from what we talk about, consider the inspiration and the exploration and everything you're doing. Take into your heart and minds the awe and wonder, the power of it that surrounds us. And remember that we live on a planet. We're all Earthlings. The only border that matters is that thin blue line of atmosphere. And that by behaving like crewmates, not passengers, we have the power to create a future for all life on Earth that's as beautiful as it looks from space. Thank you. All right, Joe, that's the end of the presentation.
All right, Nicole.
I tried to go super fast, Joe, so that we could have
great.
time to talk.
No, great presentation. And, you know, I think if we could give everybody that perspective that you and your colleagues have had of leaving our planet and looking down on it, not seeing country lines and seeing that thin little blue line, I think that would change. There'd be a lot of crewmates would be, you know, made overnight. And I think people would really understand what it means and what we have.
Yeah. And I love that, you know, that it's another one of the reasons why I love this whole program that you have, and that all of you are here today participating, exploring by the seat of your pants, because right there in your classroom, I guarantee you, by the seat of your pants, sitting in your classroom, you can look around and there will be something that should inspire the same kind of awe and wonder. If you really open yourselves up to it, and then you go outside and look up at the sky or at the grass or the flowers, or, you know, I mean, your pets, your friends, and consider it. You do not have to go to space to get the same perspective. And that's one of the things I really want people to understand, is that I highly recommend the go into space thing. Absolutely. And any of these other places that I've shown you in these pictures, but you do not have to go to these places to understand this very basic, very human, and very awesome and wonderful concept of being crew and not passengers. Yeah.
Right.
All right.
Well, that's perfect. Let's play a little game together now. We have our Kahoot queued up and ready. So if our students were paying attention, you are ready to compete. That is the link I just shared on the screen. You want to go to kahoot.it. Once you get there, it's going to ask you for a password. Now, if you don't have one-to-one tech at your seats, that's no big deal. Your teacher could put it up at the front of the room. You could shout out your answers. If you can't connect that way, just see what comes up, shout out your answers, and see how you do. So I'm going to share my screen right now, and we're going to give you that PIN number if you don't have it already. All right, here it comes. 754-6721 today. You can use something like a mobile device or a tablet and scan that little QR code, and it'll bring you right in. Or go to kahoot.it and then pop that PIN number in. You can see we've got a bunch of students in already. They're getting those automatically generated animal names like the silly hawk and the Amazon dolphin and the genius goat, and on and on and on. We got lots coming in, so we'll give it a few more minutes to get those students in, and we'll talk a bit about the rules. 4 questions today, 20 seconds for each. We've got some true and false. We've got some multiple choice. You get the answer right, you're getting some points. You get the answer right and you do it quickly, you get even more points. If you slam that buzzer and you get that answer wrong, well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how quickly you do it. You're not getting anything. We need those right answers, and we need them as quick as you can. So we'll get started very soon, but there's a lot of students popping in, so we'll give them some more time. We're getting almost just hit 170. Whoa, lots of it. Very cool. After that, we'll switch to some Q&A action. So if you are joining us via YouTube, I can see lots of classrooms have said hi already. Use that spot to send in some of your questions. And actually, maybe Nicole will do one where we give another couple seconds for more students to get in. Grade 4-5 class in Ayr in Ontario was wondering about the temperature in space. Is it cold in space?
Well, where we are inside of the space station is really very nice. It's, like the temperature of an air-conditioned room, very comfortable. We get to wear our regular clothes because we're inside and it's pressurized and all of that. We're floating around. Outside, it's both hot and cold. So depending on if you're exposed to the sun, where you are in your orbit around the Earth, it could be a couple hundred degrees hot, or it could be a couple hundred degrees cold. So that's why we have to wear really special equipment, those spacesuits when we go outside, not to mention that there's no air out there. So that's not very good for us either.
All right. Well, things have slowed down here, so I think we are ready to start. Let's get this going. So remember, 20 seconds, read the questions. I'll read them out to you as well, and get those answers in as quick as you can. So here we go. How many days has Nicole spent in space? We talked about this in the introduction. Was it 10, 65, 104, or 152 days? So between that beautiful space station, between that space shuttle, how many days did she spend living and working in space? Got a couple more seconds. All right. Good job, crew. Most students went with 104. Very cool. Let's go on to our next question. The Rocky Urchin is holding down that top spot, but it is close. True and false, the International Space Station is about the size of a football field. True or false? The International Space Station is about the size of a football field. Halfway there. A few more seconds to get that answer in. Is that true? Is that false? All right. Absolutely true. Very good stuff. Ooh, the silver ostrich sneaking into place. But it's anyone's game. We got 2 more questions here. Another true and false. Doing experiments, science experiments in zero gravity, it's not really that interesting to scientists. Is that true or is that false? Like, it's okay, but scientists aren't really that excited about it. Getting to do those experiments in zero gravity. Is that true or is that false? Got a couple more seconds to get that answer in. There we go. Absolutely
awesome.
False. How many experiments do you think were on the go when you were up at the station, Nicole?
I think on any given day, there were over 100 experiments. That's back in the olden days when I was there. I understand now there's, actively going on, whether the crew's involved with them or not. It's approaching like 500 investigations that are happening in parallel all the time. And that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of good science going on.
And in pretty much any area of science you can imagine, it's happening. Yeah.
All right. Well, the purple crane has stolen that coveted top spot. But here we go. Anything can happen. In our last question, Nicole made the first what in space? Was it the first taco, the first watercolor painting, the first sweater, or the first story? Nicole, was it tacos? Was it a painting with watercolors? Was it a story? Or was it a sweater? We've got a few more seconds. All right.
I love it.
Went with taco. Couple went with taco, but most went with the watercolor painting. Very cool. Now it's time to look at our podium here. In third place, we have Dr. Lobster. In second place, we've got the Legend Raccoon. And hold down that top spot. What's going to happen here? The Purple Crane was able to hold it for those last two questions. Very cool. Thanks so much for playing along, everyone. Awesome. And let us get into a little Q&A action now. So let me get rid of this banner. If you're on YouTube, get those questions in. Let's start with some camera classrooms. We are going to go to North Carolina first. We've got Miss Moore's class hanging out with us, some sixth graders. Let us bring them in front and center, hiding at the bottom. There they are. Hey,
and Joe, you know, I'm sorry, sixth graders. Hey, no, go ahead, Joe. I was just I'll tell you after.
Okay. All right. All right, sixth graders, who's got a question for us?
Hi, Nicole. I have met you before, so I'm really excited.
Love it.
Today. We've got a student who wants to know, what were the challenges of painting in space with microgravity?
Great question. And, you know, and I'll lead into that with, I didn't make the first taco in space, but most of what we eat is a lot like tacos because we wrap it in flour tortillas to eat up there. Painting, like everything in microgravity, is all about, and we don't think about it, it's about keeping track of your stuff, right? Everything floats, so you're having to use that Velcro, strap yourself in, all of that. And, you know, I showed you that floating ball of water. That's what I'm dipping my brush into, is like floating balls of water instead of into a cup of water. And then watching how differently the water and the colored water behaved on the end of the brush. And I mean, it was just very different, like everything in space, but not more difficult. It was just different. And it's amazing how we as humans adapt to those kinds of things. I am really, really thankful that I got to do that in space. And I would encourage you, no matter where you go, to think about how you can bring these kinds of things that you love along with you. It's a very special human thing to be able to do that kind of stuff.
All right. Yeah. Great question to get us started. We're going to go to Alabama now. Miss Foster's crew is hanging out with us. Looks like some eighth graders. Let's get them in front and center. Hi. Hey, eighth graders. How we doing?
Hello.
Good. What are your feelings about space tourism?
I love the idea of space tourism. You know, there's a lot that's starting to get going now with that. And just like we saw with airplanes, over time, that's going to be available to more and more people, which makes me really happy because, like Joe was saying, I think, you know, even though you don't need to go to space to appreciate this, this impression of Earth that you get from space, I love the idea of more and more people having the opportunity to do that. Getting our leaders up into space with their little heads bouncing off each other, looking back at Earth and thinking about the way that they, you know, manage things on our behalves would be a wonderful thing. And I think what we're doing with the little baby steps right now with space tourism are the kinds of things we need to do to further develop the spaceships and the ways we'll live and work in space, for the science side of it as well, and for the exploration side of it, and for, again, continuing to do all those things to benefit life on Earth. So thumbs up for the space tourism.
All right. Very cool. And, you know, I think you'd be on board with me saying that there's great ways to explore our planet. And one of the best is to strap a scuba tank to your back and get underwater and explore that ocean world. You spent a lot of time on the Aquarius reef base, which we've done some live events from as an Aquanaut.
Yeah, I really, Joe, still want to get down there with you someday. I think, yeah, just putting your face in the water, just put like a mask and a snorkel on and just float looking in the water too. This world that opens up to you that just looks like the surface any other time. It's the same exact thing as looking back at Earth from space. It's all about perspective and just opening up this new, I don't know, this new wonderfulness around you.
All right. Let's grab another classroom here. Let's track down. Let's do visit a Canadian classroom this time. We are going to go to Madame Stephanie's class, some grade 5, 6s in Milton, Ontario. Let me bring them in front and center. There we go. How are we doing today, boys and girls?
Good. Have you ever thought of like have you ever both explored space and the water outside of a spaceship or like a underwater submarine?
Yeah, the place that Joe was just mentioning, the Aquarius undersea habitat, that's exactly what that is. It's it's like the size of a school bus, and it's like a submarine that's just sitting fixed on the bottom of the ocean. And so they send people there. NASA does that. They send us there to learn how to live and work on a space station. And instead of going out in our spacesuits into the vacuum of space, we go out in big dive gear and explore in the ocean. It's the best comparison to what it's like to live and work in space. And the only other time I've been in the water like that is like scuba diving, like Joe mentioned. That is, I mean, it's like you're in another world, or snorkeling. And then when I had that opportunity to go down to Antarctica, they had a little 5-person submarine that you could go down into the ocean with and see all this. I just imagined, okay, it's so super cold in Antarctica. How could there be anything living in the water? And there was. It was amazing. Now, I didn't get out in the water from that sub, but I got to be in this like little ball of glass looking at all of that around you. There is so much to explore and so much that's otherworldly, like almost feels like you're on another planet that's right here on Earth. Really incredible.
All right. Great question from Milton. We're going to go to New York this time. We've got 2 classrooms hanging out in New York, Miss Collins and Miss Darling's crew, 5th graders. Let's get them in here.
Hi, my name is Rosemary, and how do you eat in space?
Oh, wow. Eating is really fun in space. I mean, you eat, and our bodies, we eat the same way that we do down here on Earth. But now imagine you can float and eat your food, or that your food can float. So we don't use plates and put our food on plates or anything, because all the food would, float off of it. So we have packets. It's a lot like camping food, really. You add water to something, or you just heat it up and eat it right out of the bag. And like I mentioned with the tacos, we use flour tortillas for a lot of things because we could wrap stuff in it and eat it that way. And the tortilla doesn't really crumble. We don't use bread or eat a lot of potato chips or stuff like that in space, because it gets really crumbly, and you don't want that stuff floating around and getting in your eyes or breathing it in or into the equipment and stuff. But eating in space is awesome. We have food from all of our international partners, which means we have a nice variety. And more and more, we're starting to have the ability to have fresh food sent to us, and to be growing some of our food in space. There's a big veggie garden on the space station. You can go check it out if you haven't heard of that before. It's really nice to have,
do you guys know that?
Veggies growing in space station, which will help us learn how to do more of that on the moon when we go back there very soon. And when you guys are traveling to Mars, and hopefully calling me and Joe and saying you want to take us with you.
All right. Very cool.
Thank you.
Awesome.
You're welcome.
Question. I do remember at one stage, this was years ago, I think they were bringing tomato seeds back from the station, sending them to classrooms. They could grow those plants in their classroom, which was kind of cool.
Yeah, and Joe, there might still be some of that going on. They would, because it was part of an experiment where they were sending seeds to space and growing them in space, but then also doing the same, growing with the same seeds down on Earth. And then when the seeds they'd bring seeds back from space. And it was an official part of the experiment too. And the kids could get involved with growing their seeds that were just from Earth, and then growing seeds from space. They might still have that. Oh, look at that. Mrs. Moore is telling us that the tomato sphere every year.
Very, very cool. All right. Thank you, Ms. Moore. Let us grab another question here. This is a grade 6 group in Oakville, Ontario, Miss Boast's crew. And they're wondering, how long did it take you from, launch to get to the space station?
Well, it was kind of in stages. So from launch to just orbiting our Earth, that was 8.5 minutes. So going from 0 to 17,500 miles an hour, and then orbiting the planet every 90 minutes, that was 8.5 minutes. And then once we got into orbit on the space shuttle, we would take a little time to track and chase down the station. And we would do that for two reasons. One, because you just have to get in the proper alignment once you're in space to dock with the station. And the other is we wanted to make sure we checked out our spaceship, the shuttle, before we docked with the station to make sure everything was okay. And that was about a day and a half. And now what they do, I think they do 6 orbits. It's either a 6 or a 4 orbit rendezvous with either the Dragon spaceship or the Soyuz. And that gives them time to get in the orbit they need to, check out their spaceship, and dock very quickly in about 6 or 7 hours with the station.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, let's bring another crew in here. We have a group at Highview Public School, some 6th graders in Aurora. Let me get them in here front and center. They look excited. Hey, 6th graders, you must be studying space this year. Okay, that was a little quiet, but I think what was the most scariest thing you did in space?
That it? Okay. Well, I think scary is kind of relative. I don't ever remember feeling scared. I remember feeling anxious, like, oh my gosh, what's this going to feel like? What's it going to be like to actually go out in my own little, spacesuit, spaceship, to open that hatch to do a spacewalk? Really very aware, very diligent, understanding the risks and all of that. But I'll tell you, I think the most scared I was, and it was what I was feeling might happen. And that was not about what might happen with my spaceship, but what might happen with my son on Earth. It'll sound a little weird. My son was 7 when I flew to space the first time, and he was 9 when I flew to space the second time. And the thing I was most afraid of was something happened to him on Earth and I couldn't get home to be with him. And I think that's true for parents everywhere. But I think for the most part, the space stuff, we train so much on Earth for all the things we think we know can go wrong when we're either launching or on orbit or doing a spacewalk, that we feel as best we can capable of dealing with that, whatever's humanly possible while we're there. And so it leaves you not feeling afraid. I think it leaves you feeling very respectful of where you are and how you need to behave while you're there. But those things that you can't control, like what might happen to your family or, when you're not there, that's the stuff I'm always afraid of.
All right. Great question. Let's go to some 7th and 8th graders. Miss Palazzi's crew is joining us. How are we doing today? Joining us from Windsor, Ontario. If you can hear me, 7 and 8s, go ahead and unmute your microphone. We'll grab a question. Oh, maybe we lost them back there. 7 8s, if you're not able to unmute, use that chat sidebar. Put something in the private chat, and I can relay. Oh, there they are.
Oh, there they are.
I'm here.
We got them.
I can only see your ceiling. That's awesome.
That's a question.
How do you shower in space?
How do you shower in space? Well, we don't have an actual shower on the space station, but it doesn't matter because the way, the way everything floats, we actually use our bags of water. We squirt out big balls of water, and this floating ball of water, you can stick your arm through it and it'll stick to your arm, and then you can mush the soap around it and put your arm through another ball of water to rinse off. Or because of the way the water kind of floats and works in space, you can squirt the hot water slowly right onto your body, and it'll just coat you like a glove. Because unless you shake or push it off, it's not going to fall because there's no gravity to, make it fall from your body. And so you can stay really clean and by just using a bag of water that you're squirting balls of water out of. Now that doesn't mean that I I was very excited for that first shower when I got back to Earth, though, because I think we're just so Earth used to being immersed in this flowing water on our body. But like I said before, just different, not, not more difficult or worse than what we do on Earth, just different. And it's kind of cool to have everything a little bit different when you're in space than exactly like it is down here.
All right. Lots of good questions from our crew today. One more here from YouTube about how you felt. Were you ever dizzy or nauseous, maybe when you first got into that environment?
I tend to get a little bit of that now down here on Earth. Used to be a roller coaster. You could put me on anything and I never felt it. What's interesting is that no matter how you feel down here on Earth with motion sickness and that kind of thing, it doesn't really predict how you're going to feel going to space or while you're there, excuse me, or what you'll feel coming back to gravity. I was very fortunate. I felt really good getting to space. I was very cautious when I first got there and we're floating around to try to maintain, like what you would think of as head up and not get doing somersaults and flips really fast to try to help my body adapt. But I felt really good getting there, which allowed me to adapt to that motion a lot quicker. And then coming back to Earth, I also felt pretty good. But, gravity, it makes you feel really heavy. You don't realize every day in just kind of our normal environment how much load is on our body, how much you just have to think about holding your head up and that kind of thing. And I remember coming back to Earth feeling really heavy and then could do anything. But if I might put my head up and down like that, it's like the whole world was spinning around me. And I just wished I could have gotten sick. That feeling where you're like, man, I just feel so much better if I could just get sick. And I couldn't. And so I felt a little bad for about a day and a half. And then thanks to a friend, Peggy Whitson, I don't know if you've ever met her, Joe, awesome astronaut, who encouraged me to just stay up walking, get on the treadmill, walk slowly on the treadmill, and how quickly the little hairs in my ears readapted. And that helped me so much to just feel good. But everybody feels different. There are people that have flown just a few days in space and they have to be carried off the spaceship when they land. There are people who have flown 6 months or more in space and they're still walking off that spaceship once they land. They won't feel very good, but they can still walk off. Yeah.
All right. Well, Nicole, I think we can squeeze in one or two. I know there's probably tons of questions out there, but let's squeeze in one or two. Let's try New York. I see someone there recently.
Hi, my name is Mia, and my question is: have you ever had like an animal on board, and what animal is it?
There have been animals on board, and while I was there, we actually brought up 6 mice, and I got to, take care of them, feed them, and give them water, and make sure they were okay. Brought up 6 mice on the space shuttle that I went up on, and then got to bring them home afterwards. And there's been fish on board the space station. The Japanese you should check it out. They have this, and that's a really difficult thing to do. Because think about your fish tank, or if you've ever had one, or the way fish live in the water, right? Air is in the water and kind of circulating as part of the water that they are breathing. And in microgravity, you do a fish tank and if you've got air, you're putting a little bubbler in there, right? All it ends up being is like one big bubble over on the side, and the fish don't have access really to the circulation of the air in the water the same way they would. So they have to design a whole new kind of fish tank and circulating system for the fish to be able to live in space. And they've done that. It's really, really cool. And there's been spiders on the space station. And I know I didn't want to be there when there was a spider. There are actually 2. And I think 2 went up and 2 came back. I'm not really sure. Hopefully they're not left there, because you know how spiders are. And, but it is part of what is going on the space station right now too. And I'll tell you, just like plants, it was really nice to have other living creatures there with us on the station.
Thank you.
One day, pets in space. That's what I'm looking forward to.
All right. And we'll just check in. We'll try Miss Moore's crew, see if they have one more for us.
Hey, Nicole, we do have one more question. The spacesuits that were inspired by the art are absolutely incredibly beautiful. The kids want to know, how long does it take from the artwork component that the kids are making to the actual spacesuit component? How long does that process take? And again, they're absolutely gorgeous. Everybody's like wow over them here.
Thank you. Yeah, check them out. We're really excited by these suits and the other projects that come to life with the kids' artwork. And with the spacesuits, it takes a little while. It's usually about 1.5 years from the time we start collecting the artwork from kids all over the world to when we can, and because it takes a little while to build it too, to when we can get it constructed. So there has to be patience involved with it, but it is a wonderful process. And for me, the spacesuit itself is really gorgeous, and I love how the kids can see how it comes to life this way. We can never promise that they'll all make it to the space station, but we try to share the suit in some way with the crew on board the space station. But the process of collecting the art, the exchange with kids around the world, just like this, what's going on today with us in this forum, that to me is some of the most important part of it, is just working with them and knowing that there's inspiration coming from the individual little pieces that they're putting together that'll come into this bigger, beautiful art spacesuit. And thank you.
Very, very cool. Well, I want to start off with a huge shout out to our classrooms. Thank you so much to the YouTube crew today. Thank you so much to our camera classrooms for playing Kahoot with us, for sending in your awesome questions. They were great as always. And Nicole, it's always great to steal a little bit of your time. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Call me again, Joe. Love it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a few classrooms have had to duck out due to snack time and stuff like that. But let me bring in who we have backstage with us. Let's get loud. A big goodbye and thank you to Nicole. Thank you so much for being with us today, everyone. And we are going to sign off today. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, you guys.
Bye, thank you.